People are coming together. We're safer than we were last year, and we're never satisfied.
Several cities have hired more police officers and increased overtime for the officers they have. Cities like Houston and New York have launched gun buyback programs. And across the country, many of the social, community-led crime prevention programs that were forced to stop or go online during the pandemic have started their work again.
The pandemic clearly has played an important role. But the role of the impact of the pandemic differs depending on the type of crime one looks at.
Richard Rosenfeld is a criminologist and the co-author of the Council on Criminal Justice 2022 Crime Report.
In many places, the homicide rise in 20 didn't really begin until immediately after the George Floyd murder. And so I wouldn't discount a decline in confidence in the police and its consequences for cooperating with and reporting to the police as a contributor to the homicide rise.
Unfortunately, though, this drop in murders has not correlated with a fall in mass shootings. According to the Gun Violence Archive, 24% more people have been injured during a mass shooting in the first 3 months for 2023 compared to last year. Jamal Andrus, Scripps News.
Father's Day is coming up fast, and if you're stumped on what to get Dad this year, you might want to check out your local hardware store for some great gift ideas.
The tabletop mounted ones.
Nate Templeton manages an Ace hardware store, where right now is like Christmas in June.
For fathers, we have our line of fire pits here, of course.
His store is stocked with fire pits, including these sleek Solo stoves, along with hundreds of tools that Dad might like on his special day. Also accessories from flashlights to speakers from famous tool brands.
DeWalt and Milwaukee are now beginning to explore into the outdoor, so like the speakers, for example, as well as the fans.
Nate says grills are always hot. One trend this year, brightly colored charcoal grills.
Typically they're on sale anywhere from $99 to $125, and a lot of folks find that a great bargain.
Have a little more money? How about a high-tech smoker that keeps you updated on your cooking on your phone? Another popular trend Dad might be all over this year is electric lawn equipment, from leaf blowers to chainsaws.
Electric, battery-powered seems to be the future.
Here's some good news. If tools are on Dad's wish list, prices on some popular items have dropped or stayed neutral compared to last year, according to the company Pattern. The cost of tool sets dropped by nearly 8%. Hand tools are up about 2%, and woodworking tools cost about 1% more. Finally, if you only have a few dollars, Dad might like a colorful Yeti mug. Shopper Hannah Stanos says a hardware store is a great place to find a gift for Dad.
So yeah, this is like a one-stop shop, right?
And that way you don't waste your money. I'm John Matarese.
Inflation is a big culprit of higher prices, but it's not the top excuse for businesses raising prices. A new survey from the New York Federal Reserve found customer demand outranked all other factors that companies weigh when setting prices. 82% of the businesses surveyed say demand factors into price decisions. Only 52% say they take the overall rate of inflation into account. Many workers under the age of 40 want to retire by age 60, but a new report from the World Economic Forum calls this a, quote, significant disconnect from what's likely to happen. 44% of people under 40 would like to stop working by age 60. More than half of those polled say they don't have enough money saved for retirement or weren't sure. Drivers of GM electric vehicles will soon gain access to Tesla's electric vehicle charging network. GM will also adopt Tesla's connector, the plug that links an electric car to a charging station. Ford is also shifting to Tesla's connector, giving EV drivers more opportunities to charge up.
We'll take a look at the forecast for tonight as we're looking at clear skies. Temperatures ultimately getting down about 74, though slow to get there. That's going to be right around daybreak there. But as for tomorrow or Saturday, temperature-wise, looking at lower 90s, sunny skies, though a couple afternoon showers, 40% chance of rain, though, moving those storms from west to east. As for tomorrow's feels like temperatures, though, upper 90s, some of us even feeling like triple digits. Say Arcadia, 101, 98, Lehigh, as well as Golden Gate for you. So if you're looking to cool off, maybe heading off to the beach, water temperature there in the Gulf, 85 degrees. Surf 1 foot or less, low rip current risk for you tomorrow. As for the sky conditions, again, sunny skies in the morning hours. Get to about 2 o'clock. That's when we'll be watching up near I-75 for the potential for a couple of showers bubbling up there and then pushing inland. So if you got any evening plans along the coastline, I think you should be A-OK there. Now looking ahead, though, towards the week, as we're looking at scattered storm chances Sunday, Monday, though, drier air works its way in next week, just racking us off to more isolated storms, but we're going to increase temperatures mid-90s with feels like temperatures up into the triple digits.
The El Niño weather pattern has officially returned. That's according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. For the last few years, we've been in a La Niña weather pattern. The two bring different types of weather in terms of temperature and moisture. El Niño is associated with warmer weather, But experts at NOAA say that typically doesn't start happening until the winter.
As we get into the summer months, later into the early fall, there tends to actually be cooler than normal temperatures generally across much of the interior part of the United States.
Along with cooler temperatures this summer, some parts of the country could also see more rain.
The Central Rockies and parts of the Northern Rockies and Great Basin have above normal rainfall.
He says, meanwhile, other areas will have a drier than normal summer and a wetter winter. But it is important to note that no two El Niño cycles are exactly the same. These estimates are based on average statistics over the years. NOAA will continue tracking the current El Niño cycle to come up with the best predictions for this year.
For years now, we've heard about emergency rooms being overcrowded and there being a shortage of nurses and doctors throughout this country. But now one hospital system has a solution that could help alleviate the pain. The sounds of this care center transport you to the inside of a hospital room. But actually, these healthcare professionals are miles away working from an office building.
We wanted to really look at how we've used technology and innovation in each one of our hospitals and how can we centralize that.
They just moved her to the ICU from 11.
Okay. This is Health One's new virtual care center. Division Director Melissa Skinner explains it's a new innovative concept where registered nurses are using technology to enhance care.
I really hope to see that a nurse can go into a patient room, have support from multiple avenues from a virtual care standpoint, and they can be able to spend and do the best care that they can possibly do at the bedside and spend time with that patient. And we can handle all the other pieces that are all essential to the care of a patient, but doesn't necessarily have to be that one person.
Virtual RNs provide 24/7 monitoring of hospital patients by webcam. They are watching vitals, doing paperwork, and even observing cardiac monitors. They can immediately notify an in-person staff member if care is needed.
They monitor our patients by camera for any kind of safety issue that might come up.
Centers like this allow for research and understanding that can't take place in the chaos of a hospital. Virtual RNs like Michael Hayden are experiencing that firsthand.
I've learned a lot since I started this job, things that I never had the time on the floor to dig into.
He spent nearly 8 years as an ICU nurse, but burnout followed in the midst of the pandemic. He was considering leaving nursing entirely when he stumbled upon this opportunity to be a part of what they call the Guardian system.
What we do is take a deep dive into all the data. Our job is basically 100% data driven. So we're looking at the chart and the trends of those labs and vitals, and we're looking at the orders from the physician and trying to see is there something that we're not doing that we need to be doing for this patient.
In the last year, they have responded to nearly 30,000 alerts.
Former President Donald Trump indicted on 37 federal charges, including obstruction of justice.
I'm an innocent man. I did nothing wrong.
And it's all over his handling of classified documents taken from the White House.
We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone.
What the indictment means and what comes next.
Plus, repairs to a leaking gas line in Lee County are delayed again, when crews will have it fixed and get a section of State Road 31 back open for you.
It's also a big night for the Florida Everblades, maybe the final night of the season if they get a win and clinch the Kelly Cup. We'll see if they pull it off against Idaho as Fox 4 News at 10 starts now.
Live from Southwest Florida, this is Fox 4 News at 10.
The indictment unsealed tonight. We have the newest details in the federal criminal charges now that former President Donald Trump is facing over his handling of classified documents. Thanks for joining us on this Friday night for Fox 4 News at 10. I'm Chris Earl.
And I'm Nadine Yanis. The former president is now facing a total of 37 counts, marking the first time a former president has faced federal charges tonight.
31 of the 37 counts are for willful retention of national defense information. He also faces one count of conspiracy to obstruct justice, withholding a document, corruptly concealing a document in a federal investigation, scheme to conceal, and false statements.
Prosecutors say he hid the documents in various places in his Florida Mar-a-Lago estate, including in a shower, a ballroom, and his own bedroom. Now, Trump is expected to appear in a federal courthouse right here in Miami on Tuesday.
Very important for me to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. To that end, my office will seek a speedy trial in this matter, consistent with the public interest and the rights of the accused.
In his first comments since the indictment was unsealed, the former president called special counsel Jack Smith deranged and a, quote, Trump hater on his Truth Social platform.
Now, these are the footnotes of what we've learned today. Now, Katie LaGrone is going in depth with what else she found from that unsealed indictment.
The 49-page federal indictment against former U.S. President Donald Trump and his personal aide is a legal stunner, beginning with a prologue of sorts detailing how the ex-president, while in office, had access to the most sensitive classified and national defense information, including defense and weapons capabilities of both the U.S. and foreign countries, the nation's nuclear programs, plans for possible retaliation in the event of a foreign attack, all information that, if improperly disclosed, could put the nation's security at risk. But according to this newly released indictment, that's exactly what the nation's 45th president is accused of doing after leaving office. Federal investigators say Trump illegally stored highly classified government documents in boxes at his personal private clubs in New Jersey and at Mar-a-Lago on Palm Beach. The boxes stored in various locations, in a ballroom, a bathroom and shower, in office space, his bedroom, and a storage room, the indictment states, where months later some of the nation's documented secrets were allegedly found spilled on the floor. Then the indictment accuses the former president of showing some of the government's classified information to others, 2 times in 2021. The first at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey. According to the indictment, it happened during a recorded meeting with a writer and a publisher. Trump can be heard showing and describing a, quote, plan of attack he said was being prepared for him by the Department of Defense. The indictment states Trump told his visitors the plan was, quote, highly confidential and secret, then admitted, as president, I could have declassified it, and now I can't, you know, but this is still a secret. A month or two later, federal investigators say it happened again at the same location. Trump is accused of showing a member of his political action committee who had no security clearance a classified map to a military operation, acknowledging to the PAC member he should not be showing it and that the member not get too close. From storing the documents to trying to hide them, The indictment goes on, alleging 6 months later, after learning Trump had taken with him secret government information, the former president, the indictment says, tried to hide it, obstructing the federal investigation into his document scandal in a number of ways, from suggesting his attorney lie that he kept classified documents to asking his attorney to hide, even destroy the documents. The indictment also includes a number of quotes Donald Trump made about the importance of classified information when he was running for president. In my administration, he said, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law. Now it appears the former U.S. president is living his words.
And that was Katie Legrone reporting. Now, the former president's indictment is a potential game changer in the race for the White House, specifically that GOP primary. Just 17 minutes after the charges were announced last night, Trump's campaign for president sent out its first fundraising email trying to make bank off of it.
A steady stream of solicitations followed, featuring videos, T-shirts commemorating the date. Political experts say this is the same strategy he used after the New York indictment, the Mueller investigation, and 2 impeachments.
The Trump response is actually characteristically Trump. It's to push back, it's to fundraise, it's to deny, and it's to deflect. And this is what he's done.
The question is, how will Trump's GOP rivals handle this indictment? Well, in the short term, Republican opponents have ranged from supporting the former president to calling on people to wait for evidence, and even some a push for Trump to bow out altogether.
Governor Ron DeSantis last night tweeting in Trump's defense, calling the indictment a mortal threat to a free society. Ahead in our next half hour here on Fox 4, the judge appointed to oversee this historic federal criminal case against Donald Trump, also the center of controversy herself. Will explain why. In the meantime, keep up with developments at fox4now.com.
Well, tonight, the Florida Department of Transportation is now pushing back its own deadline to repair a gas line that's been leaking for 3 days now, causing State Road 31 to be shut down for the 3 days since Wednesday. So last night, FDOT officials told us the line would be repaired today between 6 p.m. and midnight. Well, now they tell us that the line will be repaired tomorrow afternoon, anywhere between 1 and 2 o'clock. This means the roadway will remain closed until then from Bayshore Boulevard to Palm Beach Boulevard. FDOT does say it's first closed after consultants taking soil samples there hit a water and gas line around 2:30 Wednesday morning. The work was part of a project to widen State Road 31. Now, the gas line is owned by TECO and serves 25,000 customers as far south as Collier County. TECO Gas says there is no environmental concern as of now, and no one on that gas line has reported any loss in service or pressure.
Lots of people getting all set for the weekend that's truly ahead, especially watching out for some of those rain totals that might be hitting up, because always have to be weather aware.
In the last couple of days, we saw the rain come earlier in the days for our folks, making for a beautiful night here in Southwest Florida as we bring in meteorologist Andrew Shipley.
Yeah, I think those beautiful nights will continue tomorrow as well. So that's great news. But we did get some storms inland, mostly here today, anywhere from a couple tenths to a couple inches worth of rain, depending on where you were. But the big story here tonight continues to be the humidity, that muggy meter sitting in that humid range, which means actually we're still seeing feels like temperatures in the mid 80s as we get in towards the 10 o'clock hour, though actual temperatures in the upper 70s and low 80s. So definitely a warm night for us. Those temperatures will ultimately get into the 70s, mid 70s as we get in towards the early morning hours. I'll break down what you can expect, though, for your Saturday. That coming up. The Florida Everblades are back in many ways. Back for Game 4 after taking the first 3 games of the Kelly Cup Finals against Idaho. Also back on the precipice of their one moment in time for this year, even after the Blades had that same moment last year as 2022 champions. And a win tonight, and it's their glory again. To the arena, Nestero, Steelheads and Blades. Late first period, Sean Jostling squeezes through a hole in the defense, and he is skating to glory. 1-0 Everblades. And then just 2 minutes later, not even as the ringing in everyone's ears had stopped, it's Sean Jostling again, ripping the puck away, and he is on a breakaway like Kelly Clarkson. Also with a big score on this one. 2 goals for Jostling in the first period. Blades up 2-0 after 1, but Idaho got the next 3, and early in the third, we are tied up
up 3-3, and they're going to watch the scrum in front of the net. Crucial because at this point, the next goal is probably going to win. And in front of the net, Tyler Irvine with his heroics once again. The go-ahead goal for the Everblades are up 4-3, and just in the past few minutes, they have wrapped up the game to win 4-3. Kelly Cup champions once again. And we'll now bring in Fox 4's Elise Chingary, her assignment tonight to see how it's going to turn out as she is now in the company of champions.
Good evening, Chris. Yes, the company of champions. They literally just won. You can hear the excitement all around this arena. It is packed. I've been talking to getting a bit quiet right now. Be coming out here right now. They won 4-3. I've been speaking with the players throughout the night here, and they're just absolutely thrilled. Take a look at this trophy right here. You are not actually in-house here at the game. What better way than to be watching this live right now from home? This is the first time that these players are touching this trophy. I mean, the Kelly Cup. I was out here last year when they won as well. I was just speaking with the president, and he says this win is even more exciting than last year's win. I talked with the players. They said this is just so for them. Amazing that they won into time, but that Kelly Cup, it's staying right here in Southwest Florida, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to take a look at these fans right now and hear again from them how excited they are here tonight. That scoreboard above us, 4-3. Of course, stay with Fox 4. We'll have more of this coverage and more of those interviews from the players, but being here and seeing this in person right here on this ice is just a tremendous feeling. Go Everblades. Reporting live here from Hertz Arena, Elise Chingary, Fox 4.
Thanks, Elise. You can definitely get a sense of the excitement for there. We'll definitely check back later on. And we caught up with Fort Myers Beach Elementary School families today. After reporting last night at 10, their school is set to tentatively reopen on November 13th. More than 30 families from the elementary school are part of a pool party at the Pink Shell Resort. No charge to get in, which, much like their school building, also took on major damage from Hurricane Ian. Also a chance for some to see their classmates for the first time in months as they finished the year at different schools. 52 students were enrolled at Fort Myers Beach Elementary before the storm hit. It's a building with by far the smallest capacity of any of the 100+ elementary schools in Lee County.
Well, tonight the Lee County Sheriff's Office is investigating a body found in the Caloosahatchee River this afternoon. All of this happening right here off Harbortown Lane. This is a private gated community right in Fort Myers. So deputies reported to the area after someone spotted the body in the water from their roof. That person told dispatchers it was about 10 feet from the land. Deputies have confirmed the victim is a male here. It is unclear if the death is suspicious. Of course, Fox 4 will follow through for you as we learn more. Well, coming up, 8 months after Ian destroyed numerous homes, some Lee County residents are still having trouble finding permanent, affordable housing.
How a Lee County Recovery Task Force is planning to try to fill that gap.
And water releases are picking back up this weekend at Lake Okeechobee. How much of it could be flowing right here into Southwest Florida and the impacts on the Caloosahatchee? Andrew.
And speaking of the water, if you're looking to get on the boat the next 2 days, looking pretty nice. 1 foot or less light chop, though we'll have to watch some thunderstorm chances. I will break down your weekend forecast. That coming up in just a few minutes.
Well, Lee County's Hurricane Ian Task Force, known as Resilient Lee, has not only been collecting surveys, but visiting communities across Southwest Florida, trying to get a sense of what you need most after Hurricane Ian. And the group's final workshop today focused on housing needs.
And now the group will be moving ahead with the official plan to rebuild. And as Fox 4's Caitlin Knapp explains, it could take 5 to 8 years to truly build back.
Well, I think the biggest concern for housing is A, we don't have enough, and B, it's expensive, period.
An issue being confronted head on with Resilient Lee, a Hurricane Ian task force aimed at coming up with a $1.1 billion rebuilding plan. A plan Jennifer Hagan, a member of Resilient Lee's Planning and Capacity branch, says they're working on.
But I think one of the things that we are really noticing is the need to look at some of our solutions.
Solutions, and the concerns community members have told the task force. One of the biggest housing director, Gary Griffin, says not enough middle income help.
Young professionals are falling in a hole, and we need to help fill that hole.
A hole these leaders feel could be filled with potential solutions heard here at the final task force workshop.
Changing some of the permitting rules, not to lower quality, but just to make it less expensive, and finding ways to increase the density so you can build more housing units on a given piece of land.
Though density, like more apartments versus homes, has been a contested issue, opponents say it'll create more traffic and people, while supporters say with more housing closer to employers, it'll ease pressure on our roads.
Housing is where jobs go to sleep. So let's figure out how far is that distance and how can we reduce that distance and strategically use our land.
A strategy they're working to piece together nearly 9 months after Ian.
No solutions off the table.
Now, $1.1 billion, that's a lot of money. So this plan is going to take some time to put together. They're going to have a draft of the plan by September, get public comment, and then they will present that final draft to Board of County Commissioners in December, where they will decide whether or not they want to go forward with this particular plan. Reporting in Fort Myers, Caitlin Knapp, Fox 4.
Well, after a week of no water releases from Lake Okeechobee, the Jacksonville District will start up releasing again into the Caloosahatchee River estuary beginning tomorrow. And there is already a rapid response team working to monitor algae blooms like the one you see right here. It is now covering more than 340 square miles of Lake Okeechobee. That water now headed to Southwest Florida. The highest flows that people can expect in the short term are about 2,000 cubic feet per second. Now, to put that in perspective here, that's about the size of 2,000 basketballs flowing towards South Florida every second. But there's a plan in place to lessen some of the impact here on the Caloosahatchee tonight.
South Florida Water Management District is constructing the C-43 reservoir. When it gets completed, it'll have the capability of taking some flows off the Caloosahatchee and, reducing those flows during a high flow period.
Now, right now, Lake Okeechobee's water level is about 15 inches higher than this time a year ago and about 1.5 inches since this time just 1 week ago. So those water levels are pretty high tonight. Meanwhile, the Florida Department of Health in Lee County still says blue-green algae from Lake Okeechobee is creating issues in the Caloosahatchee River. Officials are keeping a health alert in place right now for the Davis boat ramp in Fort Myers Shores. This means if you're nearby in that area, don't drink the water, swim near it, and you should keep your pets away from it as well.
Bringing Fox 4 meteorologist Andrew Shipley. I know you've covered this extensively.
Yes.
Between Fort Myers Shores and other places all the way up to Lake-O. Really the impacts that people do see on this.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that stuck out to me is a couple weeks ago, I talked to a professor, Dr. Barry Rosen at FGCU. He said guacamole season's not right around the corner, and that's what we're seeing.
Well, and it's that time of year. Not only is it rainy season where all of that runoff gets into the waterways, but also it's really hot outside.
And that warm water helps feed that algae. And we've been seeing about 340 square miles of algae on Lake-O. But I kind of want to touch on this a little bit. One of the big factors in this water release is how high the water is right now, sitting at about 14 feet. It's about 2 feet above normal. And all that flow, for the most part, is to be going down the Caloosahatchee. And obviously, this is the water, that blue-green algae on top of Lake-O. That's the picture taken today as well. But we are seeing some toxins even associated with these algae blooms as well, not only just in the Caloosahatchee, but on the lake itself. And that's something we're going to have to be watching as we move through the next several weeks and deal with these blooms. But let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit of weather here. Take a look outside here in the Bayfront Inn down in Naples. Not a bad night. It's a humid night, but not a bad night. Mostly clear skies, 74 degrees. That temperature for us, that overnight low. It's going to be closer to daybreak, but it's still right where we're supposed to be this time of year. As for temperatures tomorrow, though, we are looking at lower 90s, so a little bit warmer than we saw today. Mostly sunny skies. And then you get in the afternoon, that's when we're looking at the chance for a isolated, scattered shower or storm there, right around 40% chance, but most of that's going to be inland for you. But we're keeping that humidity around as well tomorrow. Those feels like temperatures, upper 90s, say 98 degrees, Lehigh Acres, 101 Arcadia. So plan accordingly for that. Take breaks, plenty of water, find the AC, cool down. Maybe hit the beach. That's one place I like to go to cool off, especially when the Gulf temperatures a little bit cooler than the air, at least 85 degrees there. Rip currents are low. Surf is looking good, 1 foot or less, though. Watching again the threat for some moderate showers, the moderate lightning threat there as well as you get into the afternoon. So let me time this out. 7 o'clock in the morning, clear skies. That continues into about noontime. And then you give it at 2 o'clock. That's what we'll watch right along the coastline for you. And then those storms will push inland as we get in towards the evening hours. So the good news is if you do have evening plans, I think you should be A-OK up along the coastline for you. Inland, we're still looking at some storms possible inland in Glades, Henry, maybe Collier County. But those should be done once we lose that energy, once the sun goes down. I guess about 8:30 or so is sunset. As for the rest of the weekend, though, I'm looking at a still scattered showers and storms expected for you on Sunday and Monday. And then we're actually drying out as we get in towards early next week. Still isolated storms, but less in terms of rain coverage, up in terms of temperatures, and also that keeping that humidity around, which means those feels like temperatures by Thursday, Friday, likely going to be in the triple digits, Chris.
Thanks, Andrew. We've seen the yellow skies over New York City and other northeast U.S. towns for days from the Canadian wildfires that really started in Quebec, but also a look at the air quality millions have been dealing with and where they're going to breathe some fresher air. Stay with Fox 4.
Well, wildfire smoke from Canada darkened skies and polluted air over most of the Northeast this week. This is actually what New York City looked like. There was a yellow-orange haze, people wearing masks again, all because of that smoke.
So the skies have cleared up relatively since then. Dozens of relieved airline passengers tell Dave Bowman with our Scripps station WPTV in West Palm Beach that taking a trip to South Florida, though, from those smoke-filled cities is good for their health.
Passengers arriving from New York and Philly had a lot to say about the stifling smoke that's in their cities. And they call their arrival in Florida a breath of fresh air. Landing away from the smoke. Passengers savoring clean air after their flight from New York.
I have no problems with my lungs, and I felt like I had a hard time breathing.
Juliana Casalino flew down a day early, leaving a thick fog behind.
And houses reeked of smoke if you left your windows open.
These passengers arrived from New York the day after the tracking service IQ Air reported the Big Apple had the worst air quality of any city in the world.
Couldn't see anything, couldn't see the grass, the trees. I felt the heaviness to breathe. We're so happy to be out of that smog.
Those flying to the Northeast were on edge. Barb Matias of Wellington headed to her sister's event introducing a new children's book at an outdoor festival.
We are a bit concerned about it, but we have to make this trip.
Some fear this debilitating cloud of smoke will drift to South Florida. WPTV meteorologist Katya Hall.
We're just a little too far south for that smoke to impact us here. We may see a little bit of haze, but most of the wildfire smoke should stay to our north. The farthest south it will go will probably be the Carolinas.
All the smoke in the Northeast did not appear to disrupt travel, with some flights at PBI even arriving early. Most passengers say they had booked their flights from the Northeast to here for several weeks. And with wildfires still causing smog in their cities, they say the timing of this trip was perfect.
That was Dave Bowman reporting. Well, Fox 4 continues to follow through on the historic indictment of former President Donald Trump, now facing federal criminal charges for the first time.
What we've learned from the unsealed indictment, and also whom will be overseeing the case.
And Trump is going to face those charges right here in Florida. Why federal prosecutors will be in Miami instead of D.C., and the significance of the trial in the Sunshine State.
Former President Donald Trump is headed to federal court in Miami next week.
I think we're going to have a huge spectacle in Miami. We've had a Cat 5 political storm hit the state.
All to answer to the 37 federal charges he's now facing. The judge appointed to oversee the case and the next steps in the process. As Fox 4 News at 10 continues.
Live from Southwest Florida, this is Fox 4 News at 10.
We're now just days away from when former President Donald Trump is scheduled to appear at a federal courthouse in Miami to answer to his indictment on 37 counts over his handling of classified documents, including obstruction of justice.
Yeah, this is that federal courthouse in Miami, and it really does mark the first time a former president has faced federal charges like this. Tonight, we're also learning more about the judge appointed to oversee this case.
Judge Aileen Cannon, appointed by former President Trump, and she reached the national spotlight when she oversaw court proceedings related to the FBI's search last August at Mar-a-Lago. She's been criticized over her decision to grant the former president's request for an independent special master to review classified documents the FBI obtained.
Now, as part of the ruling, federal agents were temporarily barred from reviewing those documents. Her order was ultimately thrown out by a federal appeals court. Now, if Cannon remains on this case, she would have control over timing and evidence in this case, and she would be able to vet the Justice Department's legal theory here.
Again, this case expected to play out in that federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday.
Just on the other side of our state here. So Sophia Hernandez has a look at what to expect in South Florida in the days ahead.
I think we're going to have a huge spectacle in Miami. We've had a Cat 5 political storm hit the state.
Political analyst Brian Crowley says Tuesday will be much different than what we saw in New York just 2 months ago.
I don't know at this point whether or not he's going to go through the same process of being fingerprinted, potentially having his mugshot taken. A release of mugshots taken of Donald Trump could really become a enormously emotional moment for his voters. The idea of seeing a former president in a mugshot, it could really make things even more explosive than they potentially have to be now.
Crowley believes the process will move much quicker because of crowds likely to gather starting this weekend in anticipation of the former president, who most likely will be appearing in person to these front doors, wanting the media attention.
His political team and communications team was already working on what they were going to do if there was an indictment. So they've already got everything in motion. So I think we're going to see a whole series of events tied around this, but also keeping in mind, he's trying to become the Republican nominee again, and they want to keep the focus on him.
Crowley says while it's not known for certain how Trump will be arriving to the courthouse, it is expected he will fly to Mar-a-Lago this weekend and then take a helicopter to this courthouse in Miami. As for traffic and security, Florida Highway Patrol says this event does not fall under their purview. The courthouse told me they cannot confirm any of the information being reported when asked what they are doing for security on the grounds of the courthouse. However, the City of Miami Police Department told me they will work cohesively with our local, state, and federal partners to provide any assistance needed in the form of personnel, resources, detours, and/or road closures. We're committed to protecting everyone's First Amendment right and will continue to serve our residents, business owners, and visitors while maintaining the safety of our community.
That was Sophia Hernandez. As we look ahead to Tuesday, we spoke with a former U.S. Assistant Attorney General who has argued cases before the Supreme Court about the significance of this case being filed in Florida and not in Washington, D.C., where the investigation is actually taking place.
The special counsel may well have been able to maintain jurisdiction in D.C., but I think by going to Florida, he avoids what could have been a protracted months-long battle over where this trial plays out. As far as the jury pool goes, much more favorable to President Trump in Florida than in D.C. And choosing a jury will be a challenge, right? Because you need to find people who can be unbiased, who maybe haven't heard a lot about the case, and maybe there's some people in America who don't know about President Trump or about the Mar-a-Lago document search or things like that, but it's going to be a challenge.
Now, the former Assistant Attorney General says he expects both the prosecution and defense to be aggressive in their jury questioning and to exercise their strikes. That is to take people off the jury who might have bias.
Just hours after learning about his federal indictment in Florida, the former president also made some major changes to his legal team. He said his attorneys, Jim Trusty and John Rowley, would no longer represent him in the case. But minutes later, those men issued a joint statement saying that they had resigned. The former president wrote that Todd Blanche, a defense attorney he hired back in April after the indictment in Manhattan, will represent him for the future.
Now, Trump's latest indictment doesn't seem to have fazed his supporters here in Florida. In fact, some of them say that their charges are only fueling their loyalty tonight.
I know he's innocent. It's not even how a feeling. It's facts. Facts is he's innocent. This is, again, a witch hunt. This is what they do when they can't find anything. They go keep attacking and attacking and attacking.
Meanwhile, we still are awaiting a Georgia district attorney's decision about whether or not to indict the former president for election interference there. But Republicans say the more indictment Trump faces, the more it seems to strengthen his chances at the polls.
I don't think any of these other candidates is going to beat Trump in the conventional way that Barack Obama was the underdog and beat Hillary Clinton. I think Trump will either survive or he'll start to take on water because of all these charges and the evidence behind these charges.
Yeah, this expert adds that some Republican voters might eventually decide all of Trump's legal battles are too much and move on to another candidate like DeSantis.
President Joe Biden still declining comment on the federal indictment of former President Donald Trump. The current president asked about the case while in North Carolina visiting a community college as part of a campaign tour.
Mr. President, are you concerned about the vision in light of the Trump indictment? If everybody
President Biden also facing questions over his own handling of classified documents. Around 25 documents found in his possession dating back to the years after he left being vice president in early 2017. A special counsel is working that case, but so far, President Biden has not been interviewed, suggesting the inquiry may have a long ways to go. Meanwhile, former vice president under Donald Trump, Mike Pence, already cleared of any wrongdoing after he admitted possessing some sensitive documents after he left office 2 years ago. You can keep on top of the latest details about the criminal indictment involving former President Donald Trump as it develops on fox4now.com.
Well, back here in Southwest Florida, they are one step closer to deciding who's next to be in charge. Today, the Upper Captiva Fire Rescue District held a special meeting to talk about 3 candidates up for the fire chief job. And there are challenges to overcome within the department. The previous fire chief, as we reported, resigned along with more than 40 other firefighters in that department back in December. Now, as the department faces critical staffing concerns and issues with accessibility because of Hurricane Ian, fire commissioners say this process to find a new chief is more important than ever.
All 3 of the candidates are, in my mind, extremely well qualified. They would all do a good job for us.
The commissioners say this decision would take a while. They will continue this discussion at another special meeting later this summer.
A Florida judge has granted bond to the Ocala woman accused of killing her neighbor over a dispute about children playing. 58-year-old Susan Lawrence is charged with manslaughter for the death of 35-year-old A.J. Owens. Prosecutors say Owens repeatedly knocked on Lawrence's door to confront her about yelling at her children and throwing a roller skate at her 10-year-old son. Investigators say Lawrence fired a gun through the front door, killing Owens. The judge set Lawrence's bail at $154,000. If she posts bond, she will not be allowed to possess any weapons or have any contact with Owens' family. The former principal of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, where a shooter killed 17 people 5 years ago, is now pushing for more school protections.
Stephanie Susskind with our Scripps sister station, WPTV in West Palm Beach, spoke with the school's former principal about how he handles the ongoing trauma here and what he's now doing to help others who are experiencing the same.
Every time a school shooting comes up, it brings everything back. And that's why it's almost like taking one step forward and then 2 steps back, because it's like, oh my God, are we ever gonna, every time we turn around, there's something else going on. It just brings it all right back. And it's difficult.
Former Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School principal Ty Thompson has turned his pain into purpose.
This is the group you don't want to be a part of. But we have really rallied as far as being able to develop some things and work as a cohesive unit.
He's a founding member of the Principal Recovery Network, a group of about 20 school leaders who have tragically experienced gun violence on their campuses.
How can we make a positive out of all this negative? We're hoping that we're going to be able to use our power as this group to advocate for some policies to move things forward.
The group spent time in Washington, D.C. this week, meeting with members of Congress, the Department of Education, and Homeland Security to share their message and the need for more legislation to support mental health, wellness, and safety in schools. At the same time, back home,
17 beautiful people were lost.
Another chapter in the Stoneman Douglas shooting. Trial now underway for the former school resource officer Scott Peterson, who did not go inside the building when the shooting happened. He's charged with felony child neglect. His attorney argues he didn't know where the shooter was.
We've got 22 witnesses under subpoena who will come in here and tell you that they too heard the same shots my client did and could not discern precisely where the shots were coming from.
Thompson says it re-traumatizes the community with every turn in the case, but he stays keyed in.
If something comes up, I'm just kind of mentally prepared for, how I can help them, whoever's calling me or whatever, to help them kind of get through it.
He says it's been therapeutic to form the Principal Recovery Network.
We're just here to help the next, unfortunately, poor soul that has to go through this, because they shouldn't have to go through it alone.
And the group's work is just beginning.
I think the only way things are going to start to move forward is if we can humanize this situation. And the only way you're going to do that is to get people like us that have been through this, that can get in front of groups or whoever it happens to be, to tell our story.
Now take a look at this. A massive sinkhole opening up in northeast of Tampa. Crews on the scene of this after it formed in Lakeland this afternoon near Scott Lake. The Polk County Sheriff's Office closed off the area. Well, authorities and crews have to inspect and repair that. At least it wasn't in a road.
Yes, that's really incredible video there. Well, this is a story, probably our favorite story of the week that Fox 4 aired back on Wednesday night. And it really, both of us really felt it on the desk on Wednesday.
So in the Friday Half Full, we'll look at the deeper message from a graduation that really meant something. That's straight ahead.
Also coming up for Fresh Air, after spending 100 days underwater, a Florida researcher is back on land. His mission under the sea coming up.
And if you have the sniffles, well, we're keeping those allergies in the moderate range. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday with ragweed, grass, and copepods being the biggest culprits. I'll break down your weekend forecast. That's coming up.
We've wrapped up graduation season here in Southwest Florida. That takes up a real time commitment. For the most part, we've got large high school classes here, 400, 500 students. It's even larger for a college event like at FGCU. That can make for a really long night, especially if your student has a last name that starts with a T or a W. But back on Wednesday night, Fox 4 anchor Shari Armstrong introduced us to a young woman who's lived a lot of long nights, a type of early childhood none of us would want. Tasha Eilerant lost her father to gun violence when she was 2. Her mom died soon after from kidney failure. But even without her mom and dad, Tasha did have her grandma. But at age 12, she also discovered she had a learning disability and she'd have to work through it. She told Shari this led to teasing and bullying in school. And all of that led to her thinking about taking her own life. One line from the interview stuck out when she said, "Everyone telling me that I would never add up to be anything because I have a disability." But there was one part of Tasha that we saw the end result of this week, her burning desire to add up to something. And she added up to so much as this graduation last week, the ceremony from Florida Gulf Coast University's RISE program. It's an academy for adults who live with intellectual disabilities. Tasha worked in the dorms as an RA, calling it a responsibility that redefined her life. She talked about the perception that people with disabilities don't have leadership roles. But Tasha pushed through, and now she wants to be the change for other young people on a similar path. So on this Friday half full, let's celebrate the young people like Tasha Eilerant. She grew up with very little, except for her grandma, the teachers who believed in her, and whatever fire burned inside of her to succeed. I'm proud of her, and I don't even know her. But I know what it's like to be a young person who doesn't quite fit in, who might even think about ending it all. I've been there as a 13-year-old. I bet some of you probably were too once when you were teenagers. Words matter to young people, especially now that social media lacks the escape time that we've always had. We're always connected. The good days are fleeting, but those bad days, because the social media can really linger over and over. We're all here excited to see what Tasha's world and her kindness and her drive and wherever it will take her. She's already done the hard work, carving out a trail for other people here in Southwest Florida to follow. If you've not seen Shari Armstrong's story, it's worth 3 minutes of your time. I promise you. Fox4Now.com.
It is absolutely worth it, Chris. Thank you. Also, a USF researcher tonight has set a world record by living underwater for 100 days. But his mission was also to inspire the next generation of STEM students. Of course, STEM standing for science, technology, engineering, and math. Dr. Joseph Dituri started his journey back on March 1st, breaking the world record on day 73, May 13th. And then he set a new world record today when he resurfaced this morning at 10:30 in the morning in Key Largo. The U.S. Navy veteran lived 30 feet below the surface in a 100-square-foot habitat. He studied how the human body responds to long-term exposure to extreme pressure, all while teaching his biomedical engineering class online. That's incredible. Over 14 weeks, Dituri conducted 124 online interactions and engaged with more than 5,500 students from 15 countries, all underwater.
Plus 100 days of nobody telling them to get off the couch and take out the trash. Sounds
I mean,
kind of glorious, right?
He was working hard.
And an update on the Southwest Florida Eagle Cam. The farewell chat was tonight as leaders are going to take a bit of a break for the next few weeks. Cameras still on and streaming. Southwest SWFLEagleCam.com. They just might not be staffed as often. Plenty of drama in the last season of Eagle Cam with M15's next moves as an unmated male. E22, the baby from earlier in the year, came back to the nest a couple days ago, but the mother eagle, Harriet, of course, has not been seen since early February and is presumed to have perished.
It's good it's still streaming, though. I volunteer over at Lee Health, and even the nurses at the station there are watching the Southwest Florida Eagle Cam. I mean, it is the Eagle family that we love to watch, of course. So,
but it's also one of those things that, I mean, really, when you think about it, it can be like a nice little like background music almost to your work day.
100%. And always to see, like, especially as we see these eaglets grow, it was pretty cool.
All right, we're all ready for the weekend.
Yes.
Eagles or not, we'll bring in Fox 4 meteorologist Andrew Shipley.
Yeah, it is going to be a nice weekend for us. Looking tonight, got clear skies, though, mild temperatures, still sitting in the upper 70s and 80s, though feels like all of us in the mid-80s thanks to the humidity. But clear skies. Let's take a look outside, and you're looking at here at Cape Coral, up along Pine Island Road. Looks like maybe a planet or two, something in the distance there. Looking at, I know we've been seeing Venus and Mars the last couple of days here. If you're interested in that kind of thing here. Again, temperatures sitting in the 70s and 80s at this time. Again, but dealing with those the humidity, that's going to be the biggest factor for us the next couple days here. But in terms of tonight, let's take a look at that temperature. As we're looking at 74 degrees, mostly clear skies in the forecast here through the overnight hours here. But tomorrow, temperature-wise, getting into the lower 90s, mostly sunny skies, scattered showers and storms into the afternoon. We will be watching those pushing inland. But the big story is going to be that humidity. Those feels like temperatures in the upper 90s. Even some of us like Arcadia hitting that triple-digit mark tomorrow. If you are going to the beach, we're looking at seas right around 1 foot or less, low rip current risk, Gulf temperature right around 85. Should be a nice day. Just keep the radar app handy because we could see a few shower storms close to the coastline, but I think that storm movement will be from the coast, from west to east, so pushing inland away from you. So there it is, 2 o'clock. Starting to see little pop-up showers near I-75. That's why you want to keep that radar app handy and then watch as you get in towards 5 o'clock, pushing inland. So if you got evening plans, you should be A-OK up along the coastline here for us. Just watching inland out towards Lake O. Once the sun goes down, about 8:20 or so, should lose that energy, should quiet down pretty much the rest of the night. In terms of rainfall, isolated pockets upwards of an inch or more, but I think for the most part, it's going to be very feast or famine. Now, if you don't see the storm, well, you'll be dry pretty much all day long. If you get a good downpour, well, it could be a pretty heavy rainfall for you. Just again, it all depends, but we're putting in a pretty good knock in things the last week or so here. Still have that abnormally dry conditions up along the coastline. We are expecting, though, more rain in the forecast, at least through the weekend, especially Sunday, scattered showers and storms for you. But we are going to start to back off those rain chances as we get towards early next week. And you can see that there on our 7-day forecast. Isolated storms Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Also going to be seeing increasing temperatures with that decreasing rainfall, which that means for you, we are expecting those feels like temperatures to go up as we get into next week. It's probably feeling like the triple digits by the end of the week.
Ahead on Fox 4 News at 11, a federal indictment against former President Donald Trump has unsealed 37 criminal charges. We'll look at what he's facing and also what comes next.
Plus, a section of State Road 31 in Lee County remains closed tonight after FDOT crews missed their deadline to repair this leaking gas line, when the road is now expected to be back open.
And also, they did it. The Florida Everblades become back-to-back Kelly Cup champions. A look at not just the game-winning goal, but also the celebrations. They're all hoisting the cup on this Friday night as they approach their summer of glory as champions once again.
It is staying in Southwest Florida. Congrats to the Everblades. We'll see you here for Fox 4 News at 11.
Former President Donald Trump facing more than 30 federal charges over his handling of classified documents. He still maintains his innocence.
What we are now learning from the unsealed indictment and what the special counsel is saying about it. As Fox 4 News at 11 starts now.
Live from Southwest Florida, this is Fox 4 News at 11.
The indictment unsealed tonight. We have the latest details in the federal criminal charges that former President Donald Trump is facing over his handling of classified documents. Thanks for joining us on this Friday night for Fox 4 News at 11. I'm Chris Earle.
And I'm Nadine Yanis. The former president now faces a total of 37 counts, marking the first time a former president has ever faced federal charges.
31 of those counts are for willful retention of national defense information, and he's also facing one count of conspiracy to obstruct justice, withholding a document, corruptly concealing a document in a federal investigation, scheme to conceal, and false statements.
And prosecutors say he hid the documents in various places in his Florida Mar-a-Lago estate. You see here in these pictures, including a shower, a ballroom, and his bedroom. Now Trump is expected to appear in a federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday.
Very important for me to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. To that end, my office will seek a speedy trial in this matter, consistent with the public interest and the rights of the accused.
In his first statements since the indictment was unsealed, the former president called special counsel Jack Smith, whom we just heard from, deranged and a, quote, Trump hater on his Truth Social platform.
So these are just the footnotes of what we've learned today. Now Katie LaGrone is going in depth with what else she discovered in that indictment.
The 49-page federal indictment against former U.S. President Donald Trump and his personal aide is a legal stunner, beginning with a prologue of sorts detailing how the ex-president, while in office, had access to the most sensitive classified and national defense information, including defense and weapons capabilities of both the U.S. and foreign countries. The nation